Susan Storm showed her husband Reed her test kit. It turns out she was pregnant. Reed was surprised because they tried for 2 years without any luck. He was delighted but also worried about what the future holds because they were members of the Fantastic Four, but his wife assured him that nothing is going to change as they embraced each other. The movie begins with a story of how 4 astronauts, Reed, his wife Susan, her brother Johnny, and their friend Ben embarked on a journey to space and got hit by a space storm which altered their DNA, and they never came back the same. They possessed mysterious powers and decided to use it for good. They became superheroes as they protected the town from whatever evil creature that attacks, and also prevents human casualties during fights. They were called the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four decided to have dinner together as Johnny and Ben were there on time, but Reed and his wife took a while before arriving. Susan was acting strange, which made Ben, also called the Thing, to ask if she was pregnant. She admitted to being pregnant as they all congratulated her, but Ben was wondering how Reed was holding up, because a lot might change. The news of the Invisible Woman's pregnancy spread across town as they all prepared to welcome a new member of the superhero family. Reed, also called Mr. Fantastic, continued his work as usual when Johnny the Human Torch paid him a visit. Reed told Johnny of the transmission signal he received from space and how he couldn't transcribe it. Meanwhile, Susan visited Reed in the lab for more tests because he was worried about the baby, and Susan, noticing how worried he was, made her womb transparent, and he was able to see how the baby is thriving. The Fantastic Four gathered for dinner again at night when they noticed what seemed to be an explosion in the sky. Quickly, Johnny flew to check it out, and soon the others joined him. The whole city gathered to behold the presence of Shalla. They have never seen such a creature before as she asked for the protectors of Earth. Susan stated that they are, so she told them that she came with a message, a warning. She informed them that Earth has been marked for death as the alien called Galactus is coming to destroy the planet. She told them that there is nothing they can do about it, so they should hold their loved ones dear because the end is near. She flew off as Johnny chased her into space, where she spoke to him in her tongue and zoomed off. The Fantastic Four gathered as Reed analyzed the data from space and figured that the Shalla had been in 5 other planets which have already been destroyed. In order to protect Earth, the Fantastic Four decided to take the fight to Galactus in space before he reached Earth. Reed readied their suits as he addressed the crowd of how they were going to take the fight to space and do their best to protect Earth. The Fantastic Four got into the rocket and the countdown began. After the countdown, the rocket was launched into space. The launch was successful as they arrived in space and began the search for Galactus. They were able to trace Galactus to a planet, and on getting there, they detected a huge energy surge coming from it. In a moment, the planet was annihilated. Susan made their ship invincible as they dodged upcoming debris coming from the scattered planets. Still, Galactus was able to detect the ship and began beaming it up. Reed used his elongated hand to shut off the engine, which hid and prevented them from getting beamed up, but after scanning them, Galactus was able to detect Susan's unborn child. Shalla then arrived on their ship and informed them that Galactus, the destroyer of planets, would like to see them. Along the way, the Fantastic Four realized that Shalla was actually the one choosing the planets that Galactus would destroy. They finally encountered Galactus as they were asked to honor the destroyer of worlds. Galactus asks them if they came to beg for mercy, but they just wanted a word. Galactus offered them a solution, a way to save Earth. Galactus knew how powerful Susan's unborn child is and wanted the child in return for sparing Earth. This terrified them all, especially Reed and his wife, Susan. Galactus informed them that the child possessed the cosmic power and will inherit the cursed throne, but as they refused to hand the child, Galactus promised to destroy their planet as the child watches. Susan had a contraption at that moment as Johnny attacked Galactus, and the whole place began to fall apart. The others tried escaping as Johnny's spacesuit soon stopped working, so Ben had to carry him. Shalla blocks their path to escape, but Susan was able to grab her using her power, and she fell into the lava. They were able to escape in their spaceship as the lava didn't deter Shalla, and she began chasing them. She almost grabbed Susan's unborn child, but they entered into hyperspeed and were able to escape. Not for long as Shalla soon reappeared and continued the chase. Susan was in labor, but the crew needed her help, so she used every bit of energy as she made their ship invisible, and Shalla was lured to a black hole, which disintegrated her. They were safe for now as Susan was still in labor. Susan was scared of what her child will become, but Reed was right beside her. She delivered a baby boy at that moment, as Ben held the child and soon passed him to his parents. Susan named him Franklin. The Fantastic Four arrived on Earth, and everyone gathered because they were delighted to see the heroes. The press gathered as Reed was told to address them. The press asked him if they were able to defeat him, as Reed replied no, stating that they wanted to negotiate, but Galactus offered a high price which they rejected, their child. The press was disappointed because it's just one child. Meanwhile, Shalla happened to survive as she met with Galactus and informed him that she failed. Galactus was enraged as he informed her that the child possessed cosmic power that could satisfy his hunger, so he could finally rest. The Fantastic Four had a meeting as Reed tried to find a solution, but he couldn't come up with one. Reed scans the child to check for any anomalies, but couldn't detect one. The people of Earth protested because Susan wouldn't give up her baby to save Earth. They saw her as being selfish. The protesters grew larger, so Susan arrived with her baby and addressed them. She was able to calm the crowd and promised if they can work together, they can defeat any evil without sacrificing the life of a child. Reed got inspired by this and had a solution on how to save Earth from total annihilation. He broadcasted his research to the crowd as he created a teleportation device, which he used to teleport an egg, and suggested that if they could build big teleportation bridge all around the world, they will be able to teleport the Earth far away from Galactus for millions of years. Quickly the people got to work and began creating the bridges. At that time Galactus had already arrived in Mars. Reed knew that the teleportation device consumed a lot of electricity, so he made sure there was power outage at certain point in time to conserve power. Johnny at the time was able to transcribe the signals from space, but just as he was about to tell his team, they didn't have time to listen as the teleportation device was ready and they needed his assistance in moving the Earth. The countdown began, and once the countdown was complete, the Earth began its teleportation process, when suddenly the teleportation bridges all over the world began exploding. Turns out that it was Shala who was blowing up the bridges as she came for the baby, Franklin. Johnny swooped to action, making her chase him as he began broadcasting a message in her language along the way. She halted on hearing this. They were messages from her planet Zenla, from her loved ones who had been trying to reach her. She was a scientist, and by the time Galactus came for her planet, he made an offer for her services in return for sparing her planet, so she had to go with him as many other planets were destroyed. Johnny tried convincing her to help them, but all to no avail as she left warning them to give up Franklin. Johnny returned as Reed informed them that it was no longer possible to teleport the Earth, so he came up with another brilliant idea. He stated that the teleportation bridge in the city square wasn't destroyed, so if they could lure Galactus out of his ship to the city square, they could teleport him to the far end of the galaxy, but they will only have 37 seconds to do that. They thought about how to lure Galactus. That's when Reed thought about using Franklin as bait. Susan, on hearing this, disappeared. Reed met her close to the city square and was able to convince her. Susan called for the others as they began mapping a plan. Reed created a shock-proof and radiation-proof carry cot for Franklin, which will be placed in the center of the city square, and once Galactus crosses a certain line, the teleportation process begins. They realized that the arrival of Galactus could cause so many casualties, so Susan contacted Harvey and told him what was at stake, so he began evacuating the citizens to an underground tunnel. The evacuation process was complete as Galactus' ship eventually arrived on Earth. He didn't want to annihilate Earth with Franklin in it as he needed the child, so he got out of his ship and made his way inside the planet. On getting there, scanned around, and spotted Franklin placed at the center of the city square, so he began making his way to him. He was closing in when suddenly the Fantastic Four attacks him, blocking his sight, as Johnny quickly took Franklin and placed him at their headquarters and replaced the child with a replica. So they waited for him to cross the line so he could be teleported. Galactus was about to cross when he suddenly halted. He scanned again and realized the child location had changed and began making his way to the headquarters. The Fantastic Four attacked trying to stop him, but they were no match as he sends Ben flying into space, but Johnny was able to save him. Susan was knocked out as Reed climbed onto him and began piercing him with a rod. Galactus caught Reed and began stretching him beyond his limits. Johnny and Ben were back on Earth and attacked, making him drop Reed as they both fell off. Galactus made his way to the headquarters, stretched his hands, and retrieved the child. He began heading to his ship as Susan noticed this and used all of her powers to gain slight control of him as she began pushing him towards the line where the teleportation bridge is. She was using so much power beyond her limit as the others noticed what she was doing and decided to help as Ben took down buildings, forcing Galactus inside the line. As he got in, Johnny activated the bridge as a portal was opened and the countdown began, so Reed quickly took the child from Galactus, and Susan uses the last of her powers as she successfully pushed Galactus into the portal and collapsed from exhaustion. Galactus was about to return as the countdown was not over, so Johnny decided to sacrifice himself attempting to push Galactus back in, but Shala pushed him out of the way as she decided to help and was successful as Galactus was sent back into the portal as the countdown was over and the portal closed. Earth was safe, but Susan wasn't breathing as Reed tried CPR on her, but it was too late. She died on the spot. Franklin wouldn't stop crying until he was placed on his mom. At that moment, Susan woke as Franklin power was revealed for the first time as he was able to restore his mom to life. The resident of the city returned as Earth was safe now, and that was how the movie ended. Thanks for watching, and if you love animations and movies, please subscribe to It's Mythical for more mind-blowing recaps like this. Goodbye.